John Wall is out for the rest of the season after opting to have heel surgery. Wall will miss the next 6 to 8 months in recovery. Five-time All-Star is averaging just under 21 points, 9 assists a game. This will mark back-to-back seasons cut short due to injury for the Wizards point guard. Here's Wizards head coach Scott Brooks on what's next in the nation's capital.
We're going to need everybody. John is, without me saying it, you guys know it, he's an elite talent. Scorer, playmaker, we don't have them. So we need everybody to step up and step into a role that they're going to enjoy because they're going to play more minutes and they're going to get opportunities.
So here's a full list of a plethora of injuries plaguing John Wall the past couple of years. He missed 41 games last season. That number will sit at 50 games this year. He's due to make $170 million over the next 4 years when that Supermax contract kicks in. GA, when you look at the Wizards situation and the timing of this for John Wall, what's your take on where they stand now as an organization, seeing the money owed to Wall and several other players?
Well, listen, you never want your franchise caliber player to have a significant injury, one that's obviously going to take away the entire season. But it is the last year of the deal before his big deal kicks in. You get a chance to get him healthy. And you could also potentially find this team in a position where they end up with a top 5 pick. Because, look, they were, in essence, heading for the lottery with him. And his injuries were significant enough that it also affected how he performed this year. So, I mean, that's the way, from an organizational standpoint, you want to look at it. Let's see what we feel like we can stay with moving forward, and potentially do we end up with a high lottery pick that also may give us a chance to improve. But, you know, his contract's going to be significant. Obviously, they're going to owe Bradley Beal a lot of money moving forward, which I would love to pay those guys because they're great players. The question is, can you develop the rest of that roster moving forward? And that's going to be a big concern for them. And listen, it's going to be a challenge because as presently constructed, this team right now didn't prove to be a playoff team, and they came in with really high expectations.
I mean, Jan Mahimi's set to make $15.5 next season. John Wall gets almost a $20 million pay bump. Bradley Beal gets a raise. Otto Porter gets a raise. And Trevor Ariza comes off your books. Looking at the complete roster, Candace, if they're going to go in the opposite direction this season, they thought they were a playoff team, maybe not this year. Should they be a team selling at the trade deadline to try to be a better team in the future?
I think that's the major question with this. I mean, time was kind of telling that this team was not going to be top in the East, and that was their expectations after coming off the previous 2 seasons. I think the biggest question is, can Bradley Beal and John Wall win you playoff series together? And do you sell now or do you wait until next year? Because obviously there are teams lined up to acquire Bradley Beal at this point in time. And he does have a pretty favorable contract. So I think that's the biggest question right now, is whether you wait and see, get the top 5 pick, put them together next year and see how it goes. But, as management said earlier, nobody's untouchable. And, they have to make moves in order for them to have a chance in the East next year.
Yeah, and therein lies your issue. Like, when you say we have to make moves, not all moves necessarily are positive moves. And there's no guarantee that if you make that trade that you've improved your fortunes. You can question some of the decisions that have been made in terms of management with some of the deals that they've doled out. But their roster construct right now is a concern. There's no doubt about it. I just don't know at this stage if I'm ready to go out and pull the trigger on trading a Bradley Beal or John Wall. This is where, from a management standpoint, you got to be patient and you got to be sure, because if you go out and make a big-time deal and it doesn't pan out, look at Minnesota. All right, this is a team that made the playoffs last year. They go out and make a deal. Very likely they don't make the playoffs moving forward. Where are they going to be moving forward? You just don't know. You want to kind of wait and see. I could also chalk up the disappointment of John Wall's season to his injuries because they were more significant than I realized. I had not known about the significance of them. So knowing what his injuries are, it's going to affect how you perform out on the floor. There's no doubt about it. So look at what happened with Mike Conley a year ago in Memphis. They basically lost their season last year while he got healthy. What did they do? They went out and got Jaren Jackson Jr., with a top 5 pick. Now all of a sudden they look like a playoff team with a healthy Mike Conley Jr. and a healthy Marc Gasol. So sometimes you got to be patient, and it's easy to pull a trigger, but just because you pull it doesn't mean your team's going to be better off moving forward.
Enough looking in our crystal ball to next year and beyond. There's a game being played tonight. Russell Westbrook gets the look in the corner for the win. 4 for 22 from the field, 0 for 8 from three-point range. In Dallas, they win their second game in the last 9 tries, getting some clutch plays from Luka Doncic, DeAndre Jordan, and Dennis Smith. That's a growth victory for them.
Absolutely. And listen, they have been really good at home. They're having struggles right now closing these kinds of games out on the road. And so that's going to be the next step. I really feel like this team could be a playoff team this year. I mean, no Wesley Matthews tonight, who's obviously going to be a big part of what they do. Harrison Barnes, he's proven that he can score. Luka Doncic has shown you that he is their best player. So they're going to have a chance, I think, to make the postseason. They're going to be in that conversation. When you look at those teams anywhere from 6 to 12, and if I'm Dallas, I feel like we're every bit as good. And why can't we get there? And bringing over DeAndre Jordan also is paying big dividends.
I think it also says a lot that your best player on your team is a rookie. And a lot of times it takes a team a long time to adjust to a player coming in that young being the best player. And you see players like Harrison Barnes, you see Dennis Smith Jr. sacrificing their game a little bit and playing off of Doncic. And you don't see that a lot in terms of, obviously the caliber of player that Luka, he commands it. But I do agree with you. I think they'll figure things out on the road, and they are going to be in the playoffs.
They've got the worst road record in the entire league, 2-15. And to your point, the thing that makes it great for them is he's earned it. Like, they respect his ability because they see it every day in practice. And you know how it is when that's where it starts in practice, when you're out there with a guy, when you see his grasp of the game and how he plays it, his understanding of it. He's not your typical rookie. He is age-wise, but those 3 years he spent as a professional overseas have paid huge dividends for him and that Mavericks franchise.
And certainly for Dallas, they know, okay, Luka's going to get the ball in clutch situations, and you saw it pay off there. Dennis Smith Jr. looking around for Luka, gets a wide-open layup at the end of that game. But for OKC, they got 2 looks. Paul George, probably the better quality look. Russell Westbrook, relatively open in the corner as well. Your 2 best players get those shots you want.
Well, in terms of Paul George, obviously playing against a smaller defender, gets to a spot. He's known for knocking down that elbow jump shot 8 or 9 out of 10 times. So I don't have a problem with that. They changed up their set a little bit after the timeout, got Russell a look in the corner, but obviously with him shooting 4 for 22 from the field, Russell's the type of player where that shot goes in just because he's Russell Westbrook and he's going to continue to hunt those shots, and he usually finds his rhythm towards the end of the game. But, they've won 10 road games this season, leads the league in road wins this season, and they've picked up defensively. So, OKC is going to be extremely scary in the playoffs.
Yeah, but to me, they lost this game. Their 2 best players both had a critical turnover down the stretch of that game. Paul George had the turnover off the crossover in traffic, and then Westbrook with trying to find George coming off that screen over the top, threw the ball away. Those are 2 live ball turnovers that Dallas was able to convert and score. And those are the plays you can't have, especially on the road in that kind of environment. So they're going to kick themselves more for those missed opportunities and the fact that they were able to give up points in transition on the other end.
Winning on the road so hard around the NBA, and Philadelphia 76. Candace, that last point that Jimmy made really stuck with you.
Well, yeah, we were in the studio on Thursday, and, Chuck said something very interesting. He said that as he grew older and matured as a player, he understood that you can't be a teammate to everybody the same. You can't yell at everybody. There's different factors that motivate different players, and the more you learn that and the earlier you learn that, the more successful you'll be. And I think just from his trade from Chicago to the Timberwolves and now to Philly, he understands that things that motivate certain players, don't work across the board. And sometimes you have to change a little bit of how you communicate. And not that the expectation of a teammate should fall or should drop, but the way that you communicate that, obviously really says a lot about how he has to go about things.
Yeah. What I took away from the conversation that he had with KG, what I thought was a great interview, is when you look at Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, like they want to be great. And I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but not everybody in our league wants to be great. Not everybody wants the responsibility of being great, because there comes a lot of arrows with that. There comes a lot of vitriol. There comes a lot of hatred, and not everybody is built for it. And I think that's the one thing that he sees in Embiid that maybe in Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they hadn't matured to that point. And so when you're a guy about to turn 30 and you want to have a chance to compete at the highest level, you want guys that get it sooner. And I think that those two guys get it in terms of the attention to detail, the fact that they want to be great, that you listen to how they talk. You know, and Embiid holds himself to a high standard. If he's not good, he's the first to tell you, I suck tonight. I got to be better. And those are the attributes that the great ones show. Like, in this business, you got to be able to hold your own self accountable. You got to be willing to look in the mirror, and it can't always be someone else's fault when you don't perform well. You know, and that's, I think we got a little bit somewhat in Minnesota. Rightfully or wrongfully, that's what I took away from that. I think he feels with these guys, they ride or die. Like Simmons and Embiid, they're trying to win championships. They're not trying to win the PR competition. They're trying to win. And I think he feels like that's what I want at this stage of my life, is to be on a group or with a group like that.
I think the thing we can see, we can look at all the stats we want to all day, but when Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons were the headband brothers, and you look at why they decided to do that, was to make a commitment defensively, to try to be better as a unit defensively. What does that tell you about this group? Again, so many great things came out of the Kevin Garnett interview, but defensively, what their identity wants to be.
Well, they are capable of being a great defensive team, as they showed glimpses last year. I mean, ranking third in defensive rating last year, obviously just 11th this year with the addition of Butler. But you also have to think they're a little thin on the perimeter in defense, and so they have to make up a lot in what you spoke to earlier, just rely heavily on Butler to not only put the ball in the basket in the closing minutes, but also be able to defend the best player on the other team. They have the ability to switch with size like Ben Simmons, and also they have the will. They want to be a good defensive team. They know that to win a championship, they have to be. And Ben Simmons has gone on record saying that he wants to be Defensive Player of the Year. Joel is a candidate for that, so they have all the pieces.
And again, that right there speaks to what I just talked about. Like, you know, it used to be like you'd hear guys when they'd come into the league, you heard different, you know, I want to be an iconic player. I want to be an all-time great. People, oh, that's Eric. No, that's a belief that you got to have. Like, you got to set those goals for yourself if you really want to be great. If you want to aspire to the highest level, you don't come in saying, man, I just want to be a journeyman. You know, I just want to play in the NBA for 12 years or 15 years. No, I want to leave my stamp on the game, and that's what I think those guys have. Now, granted, the statistics may not bear it out, but I can guarantee you they're better prepared for the postseason with Jimmy Butler. No disrespect to what you get with Covington, who's a really good player, and Saric, but they have another guy that can make every play, whether it be score it, defend it, rebound it, pass it when it matters. They didn't have that last year. He gives them that in those big moments, those critical winning times as they progress and get better. Yeah, the bench is not where they probably would want it, but they're closer to their goals now than they were 2 months ago.
You say in winning time, in the clutch, having that right player. Team they're playing tonight, the Portland Trail Blazers, have that in Damian Lillard for sure.